Hello there mates, Mooshi Gamer here, and this is the start of VGAC, the Video Game Anime Club, which doesn't have a motto yet, but we're working on it. So tonight, we only have one of our other hosts, so it's not running at full capacity, but it should still be a fun night. What do you think?
I certainly hope so.
So we have Shrouded and Sanity going, and I'm just gonna read the Steam page summary, which, after looking at it, this summary gave a lot more detail of the game than I previously was aware of. But okay, a survival horror game inspired by Resident Evil 1, Dark Souls, and Eternal Darkness, set in the alternative historical setting of 1897, angelic Empire of Britannia. Your contract will order you to eliminate the source of the unnatural fog enveloping in the Burleigh Manor. Discover the secrets of the estate as you look for answers among the violent inhabitants. A strange and repelling madness took hold of the servants roaming the halls, and they will attack on sight, for their madness is one rooted in a deeper understanding of cosmic insignificance. To repel the maddening horrors, your Latocane and Waltham A9 hand cannon will aid you. To mend your injuries, your Vitae concoctions will offer healing. Beware, whatever unearthly events have transpired, your sanity will be tested as the truth unfolds in this hungry, all-consuming fog. And that is the summary for Shrouded Sanity.
Yes. When we have a fantasy world that we don't want them to have a gun, but we want them to have a gun. The hand cannon.
Yeah, I was looking at it and I was reading it and I was like, that's an interesting choice. I think it's just a gun. But okay. But anyway,
sorry.
I was gonna say, I completely forgot. You should totally introduce yourself, my bad.
It's fine. I assumed it wasn't important. Hi, my name's Jack. I don't really have much of an internet presence, so I'm going to use my real name. Hi, I'm Jack.
Jack's a good name, I feel.
Why, thank you very much.
Okay, so
I've chosen to go by.
you haven't actually played much of Shrouded Sanity. You watched some gameplay, right? I mean, it is a very hard game. I will say that with 100% honesty.
And my style of game is like, oh my god, what is it called? Harvest Moon. I like farming simulators.
Well, I'm sure you must love Stardew Valley.
Oh, I adore Stardew Valley with a passion. It's the Dark Souls of farming games, if I dare say.
Well, even though you watched gameplay and you played it, so this is gonna kind of be a bit of a split question for you. So, what was your first, in like 10 minutes of Shrouded Sanity? What was your first impression of it?
Oh my god! Why can't I get past this stupid tutorial? See, as I said before I started recording, I didn't actually get past the tutorial. It very much, these kind of games are not really my style. I tried really hard, but I just couldn't get past the tutorial. I'm not the biggest combat person in the world. But I mean, if I have to give like an opinion of it outside of that, I thought the tutorial was a tad annoying, mostly because I dislike how they try to introduce you to the mechanics. Because one specific mechanic that I just kind of had a problem with, that whole absorbing your fallen comrades like vial, was that what it was called?
I think it's pronounced Vitae or something fancy like that.
Well, one of the things that the game says is once you kill your first enemy, you know what to do. I didn't know what to do. I just kept going forward. Like, I didn't know that was a thing until I saw a walkthrough of it later.
Yeah. The tutorial wasn't my favorite either. Just because, and I kind of make fun of this in my video, but instead, tutorials are generally to teach you the controls, but this tutorial was more like, if you want to know the controls, pause and look at it. And I was like, okay.
which honestly, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with. Like the very beginning of the tutorial is just an open space where you can just fiddle around with all the various buttons that you have to see what does what. And you know what? That's fine. It's perfectly reasonable to expect your player to do something like that. Because you know what? A lot of players do that. See, okay, what's up, what's down with my simple attacks. That's perfectly fine.
See, I would.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would feel that way if the first room also did contain a lateral longitudinal. There was basically a floor of spikes. So what happened with me was that I would be walking and then I get death spikes. And that happened about 3 times before I finally learned the controls enough to not do that.
Okay, so here's my problem with the floor spikes. I think my big problem with the floor spikes are they are introduced to you as a, for lack of a better term, platforming challenge, where you have to figure out a way to navigate the spikes. The game has spikes, although it's not very prevalent. These spikes in the rest of the game are designed to create more interesting and more complex combat experience. Where not only are you having to navigate around your opponents, you're also having to keep an eye on the ground and make sure you don't step on spikes that will cause you a lot of damage. Now that is neat, but that is not how these spikes were originally introduced as, and that's just misleading for a tutorial's sake.
Let's see, you watched the gameplay that got much further than I did because I didn't even know the spikes were a part of any of the boss battles until right now.
Oh no, not the boss battles. I mean just like while you're walking down hallways to make the random encounters more interesting, there will occasionally be like two, let's just say, for example, two butlers and a maid, and then there are like two floor spikes. So now you're having to constantly move around, trying to dodge all of these close range and teleporting range attacks. And you also have to keep in mind the footing of where your limited space is.
Oh, I see.
And that's interesting, and that is not how the spikes were originally depicted as being used.
No, you're completely right.
So I think I don't necessarily have a problem with using mechanics in different ways, but I feel like in a tutorial it should be setting up the game more, not just in controls and how to navigate, but like what the game is. Like that's why there's a combat section in there to get you used to the combat.
Right.
I couldn't get used to it, but that's not the point. So yeah, that's just kind of my take on the tutorial. I didn't think it was a very good tutorial.
Yeah, definitely in the vein of tutorials, it left a bit to be desired. More so, I kind of almost feel as if the tutorial was a way to be like, hey, this game is gonna be really hard. That's what the tutorial felt like to me.
Maybe. I don't know, honestly. I it doesn't feel like the tutorial was inherently part of the game design, honestly, because you can skip it. And like, granted, there are a lot of games that have good tutorials that you can skip, but it feels like if you skip the tutorial, nothing is lost from the in between of the opening cutscene and then the actual start of the game. Like, aside from just getting a feel for the game, nothing's lost. And I feel like you could get an equal amount of feel from the game just from having a long hallway that you can practice pressing your buttons.
That's true. That is true. But jumping right into the graphics, how would you say you like the graphics of the game?
So I'm honestly not the biggest stickler for graphics. I think these look fine. I'm actually a fairly big fan of pixel sprite art, and I thought it did it well. I thought the backgrounds at times were honestly fairly stagnant, but I understand in theory why it was that, just to make sure that the game could process the actual movement of the creatures, which is fine, but I also feel the backgrounds weren't incredibly detailed and just not that interesting to look at after a while.
Well, I am a big stickler for graphics, and typically I don't go for pixelated games for that very reason. In fact, this is probably going to get me a lot of hate. I did not play Undertale because I saw its graphics and I was like, why would I play this? I could play Bayonetta and get these beautiful graphics and a killer story to go along with it. So I'm one of those people. But the more I played Shrouded Insanity, the more I kind of got into the pixelated graphics. Although, like you said, the backgrounds are a bit monotonous. I think the two places that I have been in the game that I thought were really good, and I haven't been very far into the game, but it was there's this room that I went into that had this blood glyph on the floor. That was very interesting, and I wasn't expecting that. Then there was one room that I went into that just had a whole bunch of items stacked piled onto each other. And then for a little cherry on top, there was a pug sitting on a dresser in front of all of these items piled onto each other. And I thought that was hilarious.
I guess something I will give to the aesthetic of the game is throughout the entire just manner, you will see a lot of what looks like just dead bodies in bags. And occasionally those bags will just move.
I noticed that. And they
And like
sounded
that's
like they were crying, which was kind of creepy.
oh, that was so unsettling. And I think it worked really well. Like the idea of one of the big ideas of this game is just trying to give you like a sense of dread of this place. And I mean that really helps.
I think my creepy list, the crying bags would have to go second. The blood glyph would have to be first. That was very unnerving. So would we say that the graphics worked well for the game?
Yeah, like I think there is some missed potential from the background, but I feel like the animation worked really well. Everything moved fairly smoothly, even on my bad computer. It never seemed to slow down. I thought it worked.
Yeah, it
Again,
worked.
that's one of the benefits. I mean, yeah, that's one of the benefits of just an indie game, just in general. Like we wouldn't accept graphics like that in a AAA game, but in indie games, like we can accept that more. And honestly, I think pixel art and like sprite artwork is unique art in and of itself, and making every game 3D models is not inherently a good thing.
Yeah, I kept trying to go back in my head and try to visualize this as a 3D game. And it worked, it totally worked. But within that 3D imaginary version that was in my head, it did feel like it lost a bit of the charm that it had with it. And I'm not sure if that was just because I had played the pixelated version first and I liked that more, or maybe I wasn't imagining it the way that it would have looked if it was the actual game. But I do have to say I feel like I would like it just a tad bit less if it was a 3D version of it.
Well, I mean, a thing to keep in mind is like this is a 2D game at the end of the day. Like while it gives you the illusion of like depth of like walking from one end of the hallway to another, you are walking on a 2D plane where you're just moving up and down vertically. And it just looks like you're walking it from the layout of it being a hallway. So, and I've always been a big, I've always had the opinion that 2D games look better in sprite form than in 3D models. It's just an aesthetic thing. I feel like it works better. And yeah, if this game was complete with 3D models and was a 3D game, well, I mean, it'd be Dark Souls, but we'll get to that part of the conversation later.
Yes, yes, we will. But for now, how did you like the story of the game?
Okay. So here's my thing. We don't get I feel we don't get a very good idea about what this entire place was like before the fog came. I don't think that's something that's super apparent. And the problem with that is this game is trying to fill us with a certain sense of dread. And since we don't have any context for what it was like beforehand, I mean, there's only so much dread we can feel about it. We're always going to feel the kind of, oh yeah, this seems depressing, but like, I mean, maybe it wasn't that good beforehand, so like, why should we care as much? And I think that's a bit of a downside to it. And just aside from that, the story is kind of, I mean, it's kind of non-existent in a lot of ways. There are some interesting things, and some amusing little foreshadowing to some reveals, but at the end of the day, it feels largely like your choices, save for two choices at the very end, are fairly inconsequential to basically everything that happens.
Yeah, I have pretty much the same sentiment, but more along the lines of the story isn't really.
I mean, it's not the focus of the game.
No, it's not the. It certainly isn't. But I'm trying to see how to put this into words. So my thing about the story is that it's almost like because it isn't a focus, you have to read between the lines to figure out what's going on. And I feel like whenever you have to interpret a story like that, then are you really getting the story of the game, or is this just what you think happened and what you think the story is? Because the actual story and what you think happened can be two entirely different things altogether.
Well, I don't think that's inherently a bad thing. Like, there are a lot of games and just a lot of pieces of fiction that are very much, well, what the hell just happened? And some of these works are, of course, head scratching and dumb, but a lot of them are really deep and interesting. Like, I'm I'm sorry, I want to not talk about it, but I kind of have to bring it up. Dark Souls is a lot like that. Like, Dark Souls is a game that doesn't give us a lot of information about the world. And well, that's not true. It gives us a lot of information about the world, but it is up to us as the players to piece it all together. Because the game does not tell you where all the pieces fit or even requires you to put it together. It is up to you to do. And this game seemed to want to do something similar, but it also doesn't seem to have an idea about itself what the past was. Using Tolkien as another just popular example, the dwarves in Lord of the Rings, in The Hobbit, have a very deep and complicated lore and backstory. And if you just read Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, you're not going to get any of that. But the story was still written with all that backstory in mind, and it just doesn't seem like this game has that backstory.
True that. And since we're already kind of on the vein of this question, one of the things that I did like about Dark Souls story versus this story is just more along the fact that Dark Souls does force you to piece together what's happening, but you always have kind of a clear sense of an idea of, I'm doing this to get my character to be the king or whatever. I forgot exactly what it's called. I think it's the king. But in this game, your character is doing this to defeat the fog. But what is the fog and why your character just been presumably brought back from the dead? I'm assuming that's what happened, and or maybe he's a demon and he got summoned. I haven't gotten very far into the game. I'm
Do you want me to
90% sure he's a vampire.
Do you want me to just tell you?
Yeah, go ahead, lay it on me.
So you play, if you're just playing like the default character, you're playing as the former king of this castle. The four knights are your four knights, and the final boss is your older brother who brought the fog.
Oh, see, now that makes a lot of sense now to me. But why he was. But even I kind of wonder, did he know that, or was he just like, oh, I'm contracted to fight the fog, and I have no choice because if I said no, then the guy would kill me.
Well, that's one of the problems of having just a pure silent protagonist. Like, we get some things about what our main character man is like. For example, when you click on various things and you see some pictures of like the queen, something that something that your character will notice, huh, there's a picture of the queen. Seems oddly familiar, which in context is a reference to the fact of the queen was your queen, like was your wife. So that implies that there's vague memories, but not a lot. But then there's also the final scene in the game where the person who brought you back to life, I don't even remember what his name was, basically says, yeah, you probably don't remember exactly who you are, so I'm just going to tell you everything about who you are right now. You're the king. That's your brother. Kill him.
Hmm.
Because
Now,
it ends up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say, now I kind of wonder what happened to make him just be like, oh, okay, this guy's obviously like crazy. I need to get rid of, because okay, yeah, he brought about the fog, but the way that most monarchs typically work is that they do stuff and you pretty much accept it. And if you don't accept it, you surely don't stay in the house where they're still living at. You would
The
leave and
answer.
try to start a rebellion.
Well, there are two problems with that. A, the fog didn't actually allow anyone to pass through it. Like, if you were in the fog, you stayed in the fog. And second, the answer is sequel bait. Like, well, no, like there are four endings to this game, and the endings are based off of who you kill and who you spare. The two good endings are if you spare all four knights and you kill the king, or you kill all four knights and you kill the king. The bad endings are if you spare the king and kill the four knights, or if you spare the king and you spare all four knights. Like, those are the good and bad endings.
That's
The idea
interesting.
is the reason why you were brought back specifically, the former king, was so that once you fulfill your contract and you become alive again, you could help fight a bigger threat than the fog, and then credits.
Oh, I see now. Okay. That's brought me all up on the lore. And it does make a lot more sense now to hear that about it. I mean, there are still a few questions that are kind of like, so was he actually a vampire or just a dead guy?
I think it was just undead. Like, I think he was dead and then brought back to life through the power of just the necromantic contract, and say, if you fulfill the contract, you will just be completely alive. Well, I feel like
Okay.
that's one. I feel like that's one of the biggest flaws of the narrative, honestly. Because here's the thing: there may have been more. There may have been a lot more there that, like, either that we just didn't notice or we don't remember. And well, I mean, yeah, we don't remember them at all, and that's problematic. Just for the game's ability to keep our attention on the plot.
Yeah, I feel that. Like I said, it's one of those spots where you have to ticker tape it together. And so if you weren't looking for the plot, like if you're just playing the game because I heard this game is going to be like Dark Souls. I like Dark Souls. And then you just went through it like that. And then all of this would just be like the joke going over your head. It wouldn't matter. But at some point, I do think, yes, putting the plot together is interesting, but at what point are you making it so fine to put together that if people aren't trying to put together, then they're just not gonna get it? Because you can play a game and then be like, yeah, I like that game. Uh, don't know what happened, but it was okay. Or mostly what you would like to hear is, yeah, I played a game and it was great. The narrative was great, and I had a fun time with it, and I was sad to put it down. That's but when you finish a game, you should always feel a little sad to finish it. It's how I feel that a game should end.
I mean, I don't necessarily think that. Like, I think it's great when you finish a game and you think, yeah, I'm satisfied, and you just put the game down. Like, I think satisfaction is a better feeling to walk away from in a game.
Hey, it's just the when I really like a game, I hate getting to the end of it because I know that there's nothing left for me. There's nothing left for me to explore in this world anymore. And so I can come back to it and I can play it again. But beyond that point, I will never get any other new narrative unless, of course, they come out with a sequel or a prequel.
Maybe it's just the fact that I read books, but I am content with starting something at the beginning and then getting to the end and being like, no, this was a good ride.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. So, how would you say you like the main character towards the end of the game?
He didn't have a personality.
I mean, it sounds like he had amnesia.
Oh
Honestly.
yeah, like well that's the thing. Like he suffers from the problem that so many characters do, where the avatar is simply an avatar for you to project yourself onto. It doesn't even help the fact that you don't really make any like moral choices throughout the game. This isn't something like Undertale where your choices, where you can like piece together your personality from the choices you make in the game. No, your choices are you'll run and kill things, or and do you want to save your game? Like those are the choices that you make.
Don't forget, you can increase your health.
Or your gun power, or your sword power. Yeah, like that's it. You don't have a personality to you. And I don't and yes, I'm coming off as kind of like bitter about it, but I don't want to come off like that. Like there's nothing inherently wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a blank slate to project yourself onto. But the downside with that is when the reveal is that your main character was actually really important to like the world, I mean, you just come off as kind of bland. Like it's a big problem I feel like a lot of Legend of Zelda games have. Like, oh, you're suddenly now one of the most important people in the world. Oh, well, I mean, you're not really a person though. You haven't talked yet.
Yeah, it does. That does seem like a bit lackluster to get to the end of the game and be like, you were once the king. And your character's just like, okay. In my best Ness impersonation.
It may have even been better if like at the very beginning of the game he said, okay, so you're the dead king and you have to retake your throne. Because like I am thinking about Legend of Zelda now. You're always told fairly early on in Zelda games that you are the reincarnation of the goddess's chosen champion. And so then you're role playing that your perception of who you are as a character in game it becomes the hero. But then suddenly you're thrust into this king role at the very end after the final boss. Just why? That seems like kind of a missed potential to of just things to do with it.
And
So yeah.
I see where you're coming from entirely. Because by the time you get towards the end of the game, if you're gonna have a silent character that you are supposed to project yourself onto, then it does seem like you want to make those connections early on because you're not really gonna get connected to a character that doesn't speak unless there's like
Unless you're really good.
yeah, unless you're
A
really
really
good.
good storyteller. Or like if you became like you're just a random body afterwards. I think that also
Oh, you got a little muffled there.
will through through my own abilities, not through like things that I had no control in.
Right.
It's really hard to describe why I'm kind of disappointed in this because it feels like a weird thing to be like, yeah, I didn't have to work and I'm upset.
No, I understand it completely because I think that he doesn't really talk much. He has amnesia. So he doesn't have any information about himself. He's just this guy that's been contracted to kill the fog, and if he doesn't do it, then he's gonna not have free will, which is pretty much how the I forget how you say his name, but how that guy explained it to you at the beginning. It's like, so if you do this, then you'll be free, which is more than what I can say for most people here. Oh ho 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 ho. And then that's it. And you're just like, okay, well, I'll do that then. But then at the end of the game, you're suddenly a king, or a former king, I should say. Then it's just like, okay.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not the biggest fan of it. They don't have a character, which is fine, but then they seem to try to shoehorn in a character, and that just doesn't work well.
So watching through the gameplay, did you see any of them play with the side characters?
I did not actually. I saw everyone just play with the default.
I was trying to because it doesn't seem like the side characters would have because obviously this game is centered around Vaymar. I think that's his name. Yeah, Vaymar. And so what I can see how the side characters would come in unless the game changes somehow to recognize that you aren't playing Vaymar anymore, or it restricts you from playing those characters at certain points in the game, which is the only two ways that I could see the game functioning around different characters.
Yeah, it seems. Well, I mean, it could have been done a multitude of ways, and honestly, I feel like this isn't something that we can really talk about since neither of us know about it. Like, it is speculation on something that could be found, and I don't want to like talk about it and then come off like an idiot.
That's fair. And we'll get to why I don't know about the side characters a bit further down the line. So why don't we just jump right into the layout of the game? And how did you like it?
So purely from concept wise, I really like the idea of a sandbox box. I guess is the word for it. One of my favorite. I am a dungeon master in D&D, and one of my favorite kind of just area layouts to make is the complex manor. I love making large estates that are fenced off from the rest of the world and have their own small little world that you get to navigate. And so just from that, I really like this. I like the fact that it was not linear at all in how you chose to, in what way you chose to approach it. Yes, some things blocked you off, like locked doors most of the time, but there was nothing stopping you from going to, I believe, the third boss you could go to at any time you wanted. And it was just separating you from all the other bosses were just keys that you hadn't found yet. So I liked it overall. I like the aesthetic of it, and I like the Metroidvania-esque exploring. How about you? What do you think?
I was absolutely floored when I realized that the castle looped around and onto well, into itself, not onto itself. 'Cause I don't think I've ever played a game where the map looped around on itself. Because usually the types of game I play, you go to a certain area and there's either an ocean that goes off forever and your character will probably die if you try to swim across it. Or Wind Waker, for example, if you went to a part of the map where there was nothing there. Did Wind Waker loop around? I think it just turned you around, but now I don't remember. But this was, I should say, one of the few games I played where the map looped around in itself, and I was more than overjoyed that happened. I can't even describe why, because it's not a big deal, I guess. But I was happy that it looped around.
Well, I mean, I feel like I've been ragging on this game a lot, so I'm gonna compliment it now. There's as always with a lot of game design choices, there is nothing inherently wrong with a completely linear experience. I have no problems being Mario and jumping in my straight line until I reach the flagpole. But at the same time, there is also something rewarding about walking around and figuring out the layout because there isn't really a map like that's easily accessible for the game. You kind of just have to walk around, and as you walk around, eventually you will just naturally learn the layout of this place. And that has enjoyment in and of itself. Like, okay, so I finally found the key to Noah's Keep. I know exactly where that is because I saw 3 doors that went into that keep that have been locked. Yes, I have succeeded now. It's backtracking done well, I feel. And I think something that especially helps is when monsters die, they kind of just stay dead.
I love that. That was the best. Especially the butlers don't respawn after they die. I was so happy to find that out.
Oh, the butlers are so annoying.
Oh, aren't they? I call them all Sasuke's.
See, I get why. I want to get to that. I get why. But like the butler in the tutorial is what like stopped me. Like I could deal with maid, couldn't quite deal with butler.
So he was a handful. But now that you mentioned the fact that you had to learn the layout of the game, I think in a small area like that, to not give your player a map and have them feel through the game by themselves is what I really liked about it. Because usually, people developers make these huge maps, and to not give someone a map would be that would just be mean. But in a small enough area like that where a person could easily just go through and remember where things are, that was really cool. And I don't think I'd ever experienced a game that made me remember where things were. I think that is what I liked about it.
Well, sometimes I always think sometimes things like that can be tedious, but at the same time, learning how a world connects without the use of like checkpoints or like maps can be really fun. Like Breath of the Wild, for example, is a really interesting game if you turn off all maps and if you turn off like all markers for like story objectives. Because, and I'm sorry to tangent into a different game, but you can navigate Breath of the Wild without any of that stuff. There are signs and there are towns and there are signs and people who are like say, "Oh yeah, that city is that way," or "You want to go to that river? Oh, it's right over there." Like you are capable of navigating that. And a lot of even smaller games will give you a map just to, like be like, "Here, the area." I played Pokemon Sun and Moon, and after a certain point, I stopped looking at the overworld and just looked at the map because the map was just a lot more useful to navigate and it worked. Frankly, it worked better. So it's nice to have a game that doesn't give you a map and honestly doesn't really need to give you a map. It the layout of everything makes sense. The hallways feel like hallways. The rooms feel like rooms. The attic feels like an attic. It makes physical sense, and that's really good.
Yeah, so 10 out of 10 there. You give me an interesting food for thought now. And it's probably too late because I've already beaten Breath of the Wild and I'm fairly familiar with where everything is. But now I do just want to go in and turn the maps off and kind of navigate everything without having to look at the map.
Hey, we our semester is over in like 3 weeks. You have time
To forget the game?
to play it again.
Well, I had time to play it, but I've played it so much. I don't have the map memorized, so I'm not claiming that. But I do have a fairly good idea of where everything is. So it wouldn't be like that first experience of going out to that big open world and just like having to explore it to find your way around. It would just be me working from memory.
Well, I look forward to seeing what you decide to do with that.
Well, thank you. So you got to, well, you have seen many more, or much more, which is probably the better word, of the bosses than I have. I've only seen Hito. Hito did not want to be hited, which I found a little aggravating. But which one would you say was your favorite boss?
I loved the night in the library. Basically, his shtick was that he kind of just kept teleporting all over the place, and it was really neat.
Also, he's like what's the gear him?
Yes, I a lot less flamboyant than Girahim was, but yes, it was of course in like a 2D map, so like never teleported that far away, but I still liked the fight. I thought it was a really interesting fight to just watch. I believe it was the fourth night. Yeah, it was the fourth night who was in the library.
They give you a key to the library right off, so you could go fight him first if you liked.
Yeah, and honestly, he seems like one of the easier fights to do. Yes, he has a couple of ranked attacks, which can be annoying, but he never like becomes intangible. They ever create a barrier separating you that you have to just like wait for it to die down. It's just kind of he's a little hard to hit and can hit you pretty fast. So keep your eyes out, move when he moves, and wait for your opening.
So which one would you say is your least favorite? And least favorite doesn't have to be like, oh, this was a bad boss and I hated watching this boss battle. It could just be, these are all the boss battles, but if I had to pick the one that I wanted to watch the least, then I have to go with that guy.
I would have to give it to the fight on the roof. Actually, my big problem with the fight on the roof is that, well, I don't know if you know this, but there are actually ways to make him intangible, to make him tangible again.
I
But
did not.
the game doesn't make that clear. I know about the ways because I watched a speed run of this game because I was curious and it just popped up on like my suggestion tab. And like there are ways to make him instantly tangible, but like after watching a playthrough of it and just from what you've said, there isn't really any good indication on what this way is. And beyond that, if you don't know what this way is, it's less of a puzzle and more of a okay, I need to wait for that 1 second where I can deal one damage to him, then I have to wait 5 minutes before I can do that again. And it just feels tedious. Combined with the fact that eventually the heat the night leaves, you have to start dodging sniper fire and just random moves start appearing in the boss ring. It's really dumb. I really don't like that.
Yeah, I think I even mentioned in my video that I hate bosses with ads for this very reason of just making it kind of tedious. And I, there is some instances like if you add ads to a boss, then that's fine if they're relatively easy to kill. There is only one enemy in that game that is relatively easy to kill, but it just seemed that they're respawning whatever. They spawn a maid, they spawn one of the gunmen into the game, they spawned one of the scissor girls into the game. And what killed me is that if you didn't kill them fast enough, then also you could have the chance of having another ad being spawned on top of that. So not only are you dealing with possibly more than one of these guys, you also have Johnny Longlegs over there shooting at you off in the distance because apparently it doesn't matter if he's in your line of sight or not, he can still shoot you from wherever he pleases. That's how
Yeah,
I
you
died.
have you have to be dodge rolling when he fires to not take damage.
As you can probably guess, my only boss fight is also my least favorite boss fight.
But hey, it's also your favorite boss fight, so woohoo on that.
It has no choice, I suppose. But now, jumping into the Dark Souls S part of the game. So this game, it says that it was inspired not only by Dark Souls, but also by Resident Evil 1 and also by Eternal Darkness. But I only played one of those games, so I have no idea what the other games play like. And so I have no good way to compare them to those games. So
True,
I only have Dark Souls.
and I honestly I can only mostly talk about Dark Souls as well. And if I may, I do want to talk about something that I was talking about just talking to you with in the library one day. I think that this game is really fascinating compared to the Dark Souls esque genre, which is a genre now. Like a lot of games have tried to implement this a similar style that Dark Souls has. A lot of games try to actively get branded as hard as Dark Souls because I mean that's a selling point for a lot of people. So it is very much become a genre, and I think it's really interesting that so many games are trying to become the blank of Dark Souls because this game is in a lot of ways trying to be a 2D Souls game, whether that's Dark Souls, Demon Souls, or like Bloodborne. It is trying to be a 2D version of that. Whether it succeeds is honestly not something that I can really talk about. I have a lot more friends who are into Dark Souls than I am, and I'd love to get them to play this game to hear their opinions, but they wouldn't play it with me. So I was not able to for this discussion. I think it's really interesting that this game is attempting to capture that. Just like once again, that's not really something that relates to the game itself and what elements it tries to take from Dark Souls, but I think still it is a interesting an interesting thing to think about, just like for the sake of games current.
And that's actually a big part of because that's what inspired the games. I think it's a big part of what the game is. And as far as because I haven't gotten far into Dark Souls. I'm one of those people who got to the Capra Demon and then they quit. To give you an idea of how far I got into Dark Souls. So by no means an expert on Dark Souls, but from what I could tell in this game, they got a lot of the mechanics right. Um, they made pairing a, a very, not a big part of the game, but basically, like, if you learn how to parry, this will become significantly easier for you. And Dark Souls had the same kind of deal with it. If you learn how to parry, you were essentially broken. And they had that element of the game in there very well. One of the things that was missing, and this might be impossible for a 2D pixelated game to accomplish, is that Dark Souls always seemed to try to make its enemies bigger than you. You were the small guy. There was always something they had over you, whether it was size or with Pikachu and Snorlax, just the powers that they had. And I've only fought one boss, so I might be wrong here, but it just seemed that the boss that I fought was just a better version of one of the enemies that was within the castle. The gunmen is what I called them.
Yeah, that is a thing that this game is kind of missing. We have Yeah, Dark Souls bosses are much, much bigger than you. And it really does give you the feeling that you are overcoming something tremendous when you beat it. Instead of these knights who are your size, just like, oh damn it. Like it doesn't make you it doesn't I don't want to say crush you, but it doesn't really it doesn't crush you. I also feel like this game doesn't really seem to give a whole lot of thought to interesting combat designs. Like I'm going to use an example from the first Dark Souls game for an interesting boss fight. Dragon Slayer Ornstein and Executioner Smoke, I think his name is.
Yeah, Pikachu and
The
Snorlax.
yes, like I didn't know that's who you're referring to. Like they are one of the hardest bosses in the game. And one of the reasons for that is because they complement each other so well. One of them has slow, close range, very powerful hits. Another one has very quick, long range attacks. And it's such a difficult fight because you can't use a lot of normal strategies that you normally would, where you just tiny bit of damage, run away, tiny bit of damage, run away. You just can't. They complement each other so well, and that is a very interesting and complicated fight to do. And there isn't really one like that in in this game. The closest that we get is the final boss, who has a lot of powers similar to the knights, but at the same time not really. Like not they don't combine in an interesting way. It's just kind of a tedious battle.
So the final boss is kind of like all of the other bosses with their powers combined, but with a slight twist on the way that they work now.
Yes, he is the Captain Planet of this game.
That should be a fun boss battle. Does he snipe like Hito?
I didn't end up seeing him do that, but he did produce flames. He did throw various bombs. He moved quickly, slashed a bit.
As long as he doesn't snipe, there may be hope for him yet.
He did not seem to snipe.
Okay.
No.
So would you say that the bosses and the enemies have that same level of difficulty as the Dark Souls bosses?
Not not really, honestly. Because at a certain point, it kind of feels like it kind of feels like a lot of what you do is kind of trivial because monsters don't respawn and you can always easily go back to like your save state to reheal. And like, yes, you can do something like that with Dark Souls as well. But the difference with that is regain their since monsters do respawn, after a certain point, you kind of if you reach the point where like, okay, no, I can't continue, I need to go back and get a fire spot because I don't know when the next one's going to be, you're risking the fact that you're going to have to go through all of that again.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case for this game. Once you kill a thing, it's dead and it stays dead. And while that's interesting for like a backtracking thing, it makes a lot of the challenge less so.
True. I did get that feeling as well. And like you were saying earlier with Hito, and this is the only boss I fought, which is why I keep referencing him. The bosses aren't so much difficult as they are tedious. Because I have had many experience with a Dark Souls boss, and as far as I can tell, they seem to always be doing their own thing. Like, sure, they have cues for moves. So like when this does this, you know that it's about to do this, and you probably don't want to be standing right there. But with these bosses, or at least with Hito, you could slash and then he would dance away. You could slash, and then he dance away. And then he'd throw down some cocktails, and then he'd dance away. That's mostly, that's not hard. It's just, okay, how much can I run around and hit him without getting hit? That's what it boils down to.
And going back to just to narrative, like there is no real narrative reason for these knights to be where they are. They're just there waiting for you to come and fight them. And that way they're kind of like Team Rocket, just kind of waiting for you to show up to win.
Yes, indeed. And now that you mentioned that, that brings up an interesting point that within my own playthrough of Shrouded and Sanity, I think one of the things I said, just kind of out of the blue, was like, why are we fighting? But I come up to the roof, you were standing here, you don't even know who I am. And you just like, just stand still for 1 second and let me shoot you. I'm just like, okay.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I didn't like the fact that you weren't allowed to leave the boss room when you entered it. Like when the fight's engaged, if there's no real reason why the fight started, you should be allowed to just leave the fight whenever.
Because that's honestly, that's the most logical thing to do. And of course, no main character ever makes logical decisions. Fight me on that. If you walk into a room and someone says, "Just hold still for 1 second and let me shoot you," or I don't, that's not exactly, I'm not quoting him exactly. He says something along those lines. The logical response will be to turn around and exit out of the door that you previously entered. So yeah, that would make sense to just be able to leave.
Yeah, I didn't dislike the game as much as I did when we started this, but as we've been talking, I feel like I've been liking it less and less.
Yeah, I do have a lot of kind of because this game, what it has is a lot of moments, and I think when you're watching the game, you're playing the game, then the moments don't really. I mean, of course they're there, but they're not really like interwoven with each other. But once you sit down and think about all of the moments together, then it's kind of like, eh. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful use of the English language.
I feel inspired.
But I know you mostly watched the playthrough. Were there any bugs that you saw, or like maybe something that happened that you was like, maybe that wasn't supposed to happen?
Not really, no. I mean, I saw the character jump around sometimes, but I mostly chalked that up to like a recording thing and a problem with the actual game because like the recorder never mentioned it. So no, not really. Did you see anything with your experience with it?
Well, my biggest problem was just starting the game
tell your story.
in general. Okay, so let me tell you, the only reason that I didn't get that far into Shrouded and Sanity is because when I got the game, I started it up and it said that there was a fatal crash error and that I did not have enough memory to play this game. And so this was a pixelated game. I have a fairly good gaming rig. There is no reason why my computer should not have been able to handle a pixelated game. So I did some research on this, and apparently this was just a problem that some of the users were having with the game, that it wouldn't play on a Windows 10. There was a conflict between the game's engine and Windows 10. And I was at first very salty about this because I remember complaining about this to you, and how the developers' only response seemed to be, well, I don't know how to fix it. You'll just have to get a refund. So that was kind of that was an irking moment for me. But then I played the free version of the game, and for some reason that worked. So I don't know. I don't know what this game's deal is. But yeah, I looked into this more, and for some reason this just seems to be an issue on laptops, which is what I'm using. It's a Dell Inspiron laptop, not sponsored by Dell. But it said it was a performance problem due to the integrated video chips that laptops use. And this is true. I have an integrated video card on my laptop. I also have a dedicated video game video card on my laptop. So I don't know. That was the bug that I experienced, and it was a bit of an irk for me. It was an irk.
Let that be a lesson to you, future people who are curious about this game. It might not work, but just get it for free and you'll be fine.
Yes. And this apparently only seems to be a problem if you're playing with a laptop that is running Windows 10. You have a very small chance of not being able to play it. But only the paid version. The free version is apparently okay. So that is all the things that I found to be quite interesting with the game. What were something that you noticed? Any miscellaneous or just random thoughts about the game?
Well, before I get into this, I just want to say that this was the section of the discussion that I got to suggest, and we're doing it, and I feel like I'm a true contributor to this show now.
Yes.
Thank you. Honestly, not a lot. Like I feel like I talked a fair bit about everything I want to talk about. The Dark Souls-esque-ness of this game, the problems that I have with it narratively, the difficulty that I have with it just mechanically. Actually, I will say this. Here's a bit of a problem that I did have with the game that kind of upsets me. So I am not by nature a PC gamer. I am a whatever console a Pokemon game happens to be on gamer. As such, I'm not really that used to working with the keyboard, and of course I don't actually have a controller for PC. So whenever I get a new game for PC, the first thing I do is I click every button that is not like volume controls to see what they do. And I did this with this game, and I could not figure out how to attack. That's not good. This game does not have a good keyboard layout, which, if that is not how the game was intended, that's fine, but you also put this game out on PC. I feel like you should have thought about this a little bit more.
See, I had the exact same problem, which I was mentioning to you before we started the recording, is that I tried to play the game, the mouse and the keyboard, because I'm trying to get just more used to using the keyboard in general. And this was not a game that I could comfortably play the keyboard with, because and I could have remapped everything if I think I didn't actually try. I just kind of sat here for a minute and I was like, this isn't working out. I think I would much rather play with my controller stick, and that's what I did. But now I feel like I need to go check now if I could have actually remapped the buttons, and not that I would have anyway, because if there is one thing I don't like doing, it's mapping buttons for anything. I will sit with like on Smash. I know some people will remap buttons to better just move around better, to be more efficient. I would just much rather use the normal controls and work my way around those than to remap controls, because it'll make me 3% more efficient.
I do not have that handicap that you apparently do. I was willing to remap the controls.
See, I'm
That's
just
how I
lazy.
beat. That's how I beat the first maid.
I'm just lazy.
That's what I'm getting. But no, like you are able to remap the controls. Like honestly, like any good keyboard game can remap the controls. Like honestly, I feel like being capable of mapping your controls to where you want it to be is really useful. I had a friend for a while who broke his arm and he just couldn't game with one hand. So he remapped all the controls to basically every key that he could easily reach with just one hand. And that's how he gamed for a while. So I think that's honestly I think it's just a quality of life thing. Like yes, you may have a way that that you want your game to function, but at the same time, like if your player has a certain reason why they can't do it the way that the status quo says, and you can let them change it, you might as well let them change it.
Yeah, that's true. Not everybody's lazy like me.
But yeah, that's actually all I have to say about the game. You have any final thoughts?
Well, that does bring us to our final conclusion. What would you say that your thoughts slash feelings towards the game are, based on
Well,
everything that you've seen, that we've talked about, roll all into one? What are those
but
thoughts?
well, if I had to give this game a number, I'd give it a 6.
That's fair. I would do the same, honestly.
Well, honestly, my big thing is this game isn't for me. Like I fully acknowledge it. If if it wasn't for this show, if I saw this game pop on my Steam suggestions list, I would have been like, huh, well that's weird. And then I just deleted it and moved on. With that being said, I have seen reviews for it, and people are overall fairly positive about it. Like the people who've played it have liked it. So my advice is, if you're not that big onto narrative and you do just kind of want a hard 2D Dark Souls, this is probably a game for you. Like it will a lot of the aesthetic choices and just mechanics will feel very familiar.
Uh, and on that same vein of thought, I also think that you could just get this game as a stepping stone into Dark Souls or Bloodborne, because there are a lot of the gameplay and the mechanics are just well, they're similar, they're very similar, and uh maybe if you haven't played Dark Souls or Bloodborne by now, which is it's still possible. You're like, well, I don't know if I would like that type of game. This is a good stepping stone game to get into the feel of those kinds of games.
Maybe this hypothetical person who is interested in Dark Souls but hasn't played it yet is a Nintendo only person, has just been waiting for it to come out on a Nintendo console.
Well, hey, it
I
is
know.
it is coming out.
They're in luck. It's like that one guy who hadn't played Skyrim because it's not on a Nintendo console. That
It,
guy's me.
I feel that. I mean, I understand the notion. I actually do have Skyrim on the PC, but I also couldn't play it until I got this PC. So, uh, still about maybe 2 or 3 months before I got the Switch. And then the Skyrim didn't actually come out with the Switch, so about 4 months added on to that. But still, yeah, that was pretty much my sentiments when I hadn't played a game that's really popular. Just, well, it's not on a Nintendo console, so I can't enjoy that. Yeah, that is all the things. I
So it
really need to
seems.
make an outro for this.
Well, I guess for an impromptu one, join us next time when we talk about another game that hasn't been decided, right?
Right, we pick a game at the start of every month. So the first week we'll have where everybody mentions a game, and then we'll vote on it, and then whichever game has the most votes is what we'll go with. Or if nobody votes a game, to avoid stepping on any toes, and I just pick which one I think is the most interesting. But usually people pick one.
Well, don't you fret. I know exactly what game I'm going to suggest.
Uh-huh. Is it a rhythm game?
Maybe.
Well, we on VGAC are going to leave you with that cliffhanger. Join us again next time.
Later.